afternoon, and welcome to the final departure ceremony of Pease Air National Guard Base's last KC-135. This ceremony features the oldest operating aircraft in the entire United States Air Force inventory. Tail number 571419. At this time, please silence all cell phones and electronic devices. For military members, this and the quad are a no hat, no salute area. Thank you. The ceremony will begin shortly. During the presentation, you may hear background noise through the speakers of radio traffic for the departing aircraft. This was done intentionally to get one last look at the preparations for a KC-135 flight.
All right. Hey, everyone. This is Lieutenant Jacob Ricciardi. He said it would begin shortly, but it's beginning right now. So, welcome, everyone. Welcome to the 157th Aerial Refueling Wing, Pease Air National Guard Base. We gather to celebrate the 135, its mission, and the legacy that we've all become a part of. The presiding official and departing aircraft commander is Colonel John Pogorek, commander of the 157th Aerial Refueling Wing. I'm Master Sergeant Keith Russo, and as I introduced my cohort, Lieutenant Jacob Ricciardi, together we hope to make one semi-proficient Master of Ceremony today. The official party today is Lieutenant General L. Scott Rice, Director of the Air National Guard, Major General David Michaelides, Adjunct General of New Hampshire, State Command Chief David Obertanek, Brigadier General Laurie Ferris, Commander of the New Hampshire Air National Guard, Brigadier General Jed French, Chief of Staff, New Hampshire Air National Guard, Colonel John Pogorek, Commander of the 157th Aerial Refueling Wing, and Wing Command Chief Matthew Hyman. Please rise for the arrival of the official party, the posting of the colors, and remain standing for the singing of the national anthem by Staff Sergeant Elena Rogers and Staff Sergeant Jared Griffin. It's customary for civilians to place their right hand over their heart. Military members, please come to attention. Colors, post.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
at ease. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing as Father Tom delivers the invocation.
You're welcome to join me in prayer. Lord of the tempered winds, be near as we gather to mark the end of an era and to celebrate all that has been accomplished by the KC-135s and especially the plane we honor today under our care. Lord, as we reflect on the long service of this plane, help us to remember all those who have had a hand in its service. The hands of flight crews and maintainers have been most clearly seen and felt on its many missions. Other hands have directed its flight and maintained its hangars and runways. Still others have supported these in body, mind, and spirit, while even more have reached out to their families. Lord God, bless all those whose hands, working together, have made our missions successful. Bless us who carry on the aerial refueling mission today, and those who have passed this mission on to us. Bless also our families for their love and support of us and our service. Finally, Lord, as this plane departs, may we be thankful for the opportunities it has given us to fuel countless other missions around the world. As we continue our mission with our new planes, may we help bring an end to conflicts, and may we continue to protect our families, our state, and our beloved United States of America. I make this prayer in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated.
Thank you, Father Tom. We're joined today by many distinguished guests. Please hold your applause until all introductions are completed. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, Senator Maggie Hassan, Mr. Patrick Carroll, here on behalf of Representative Chris Pappas. Major General Joseph Simeone, retired. Major General Mark Sears, retired. Major General Gretchen Dunkelberger, retired. Brigadier General Sean O'Brien, Brigadier General James Lefevre, Brigadier General Tim Lunderman, Brigadier General Caroline Protzman, retired. Colonel James Ryan, retired. Colonel Robert Liljedahl, retired. And all other commanders, command chiefs, civic leaders, and community partners, thank you so much for being a part of this occasion.
Now, please welcome to the stage the mission crew for the final departure. Colonel John Pagoric, Aircraft Commander. Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Cole, Co-Pilot. Master Sergeant John Lennon, Boom Operator. Master Sergeant Glenn Starkweather, Boom Operator. Technical Sergeant Mark McCassin, Flying Crew Chief. And Staff Sergeant Todd Van Zant, Flying Crew Chief. We would also like to offer a sincere thank you to all the men and women of the 157th Air Refueling Wing, current and retired, who have all served and sacrificed in some shape or fashion in the mission of the KC-135 here at Pease. Colonel John Pagoric will now come forward to say a few words.
Thanks. Good afternoon, the 157th.
Good afternoon.
Now, we're going to try that again. I need you to hear you this time. Good afternoon, 157th. Good afternoon. All right, I want to welcome everybody for being here, and I'm going to start right off, though, with recognition. Would Major Dan Sawicki come forward, please? Here he's coming. I gave Dan the task of putting this whole thing together, and where we started and where we ended up today, it's morphed into something different, and I just want to really say congratulations. Thank you for all the hard work you did. It's a bittersweet day today. A lot of emotions are going through all of us. We're really excited about getting the KC-46 here. But as I think about the history of the plane here after 44 years, a lot of emotions. It's been, we've done a lot with this plane, and it's been very good to us. So definitely torn with different emotions as we go through today. Also want to thank our MCs, Lieutenant Ricciardi and First Sergeant Russo, Public Affairs Office for the video you'll see. And I want to point out John Lennon, if you raise your hand. John is our oldest boom operator, I believe, in the Air National Guard, and he's going to be the star of that video, so look forward to that. I want to thank our comm shop for today's audio visual and our maintainers for setting up today's venue. All right, I need some audience participation here. Feel free to look around. So, by show of hands, who served here at Pease between the years 2000 and 2009? Okay. Now, you can keep your hands up for as we go down here. Any time in the 90s, you served here in the 157th. All right, how about the 80s? And the 70s. How about the 70s? Okay. All right, that's terrific. That is certainly some history. All right, I didn't know we were going to go there. Let's go, 60s. Wow. 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 All right, for those that are serving today, especially the 60s, that generation in the 70s, talk to them. You saw the hands go up. Because 44 years ago today, this unit converted from the C-130s to the KC-135A model. And the hangar that we're sitting in here, you can see this part right here was added. So they're doing the same kind of construction that the hangar next door is doing. They had to get new tooling, new machinery, more parts, and of course all that training for the airmen. Back in the 60s, as well as the 70s, the 157 had an excellent reputation, as we do today. And they were up for that task back then. The 135s were new to the Guard and Reserves. We were new to Strategic Air Command. And this was during the Cold War period. The 157th became the first Guard unit to become fully mission capable in the mission, and we stood up a 24/7 alert line alongside our active duty right here at Pease, which means we were total force before it was cool. In the 70s, we deployed to Europe as part of European Task Force, and by the end of the 70s, the 157 had established itself as the best in SAC. We were the first Guard Reserve unit to win a SAC trophy for navigation, and we received our first Outstanding Unit Award, which is over a 2-year period. In the 80s, the unit converted from the A model to the E model. Stronger engines, and they had the coveted thrust reversers, which the KC-46 or the 135R model, neither one of them has as an option. The unit deployed to Guam as part of Pacific Sentry and flew missions out of Japan, Diego Garcia, and the Philippines. And they won numerous Golden Tanker Awards and the Spats Award, which is for the Air National Guard's best flying unit. If you were here in the 90s, things got real busy. Operation Desert Shield began as we tried to contain Iraqi aggression, and the 157 stood up more alert lines and launched 42 times on those alerts to refuel transport and fighter aircraft traveling to the Middle East. Additional planes from other units came here, and we formed the Air National Guard Tanker Task Force and stood up the first air bridge between Pease and RAF Mildenhall in England. Many members soon deployed to Saudi Arabia, Marone Air Base, Spain, and Cairo, Egypt in support of Operation Desert Storm. President Bush declared the Cold War over in the early 90s, and after 15 years of that continuous alert, 24/7, we stood down those home station alert lines. 1991, the active duty left Pease as part of the Base Realignment and Closure Commission. We were renamed Pease Air National Guard Base. We exchanged those E models for the R models, which is still what we have here today for, let's say, another hour? That's tail 1419, 1957 model, and that's an R model aircraft. The unit formally established a Northeast Tanker Task Force alongside the 101st up in Bangor, and that mission is to bring fighters to and from the fight, and it continues here today. The unit deployed to Europe in support of Operations Deny Flight over Bosnia-Herzegovina to Insular Turkey to enforce a no-fly zone over northern Iraq and filled NORAD alert lines in both Alaska and Iceland. If you were here in the 2000s, we had training lines scheduled to fly on the morning of September 11th, 2001. And like other units in this country, following the terrorist attacks, we went into action. We stood up 24/7 alert lines. We launched to refuel fighters that are enforcing no-fly zones over our own nation's largest cities. Many families lost loved ones that day, and we lost American Airlines Captain John Oganowski, the pilot of Flight 11, and the brother of Lieutenant Colonel Jim Oganowski, better known as Ogie, and a member of the 157th. Once again, units came from all over the country to Pease. We stood up a record 15 alert lines, flying Homeland Defense missions and air bridge missions. We continued deployments to the Middle East, the Pacific, and Europe. We flew aeromedical evacuation missions in and out of Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan, and brought airmen and supplies to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. And in 2009, the active duty returned to Pease as the 64th Air Refueling Squadron. And I need to hear you now. Where are the 64th members? All right, so if your service, with all those hands on up, if your service ended at this point in our history, you're probably thinking, yeah, I knew all that, I lived it. So what I really want to know, though, is, are you still leading the way? Are you still crushing it? 157th, answer that one for me. And I'll say, rest assured, with our active duty brothers and sisters, we absolutely are. Since 2000, this unit has received 7 Outstanding Unit Awards covering 14 years, and we have submitted for our 9th one, sir, so I hope you look favorably on that. Higher headquarter inspectors have labeled our O-Plan 81X as the nuclear alert mission as we are the experts. We supported continuous deployments to the Middle East and meeting our commitments in the Pacific and Europe. We flew disaster relief missions to Puerto Rico, deployed our 2 disaster relief bed-down systems to the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico in the aftermath of Hurricanes Maria and Irma. I can't imagine the thought that anybody would have thought that the KC-135 would be flying after 60 plus years and projected to fly for another 30 or 40. That speaks to the solid design from our Boeing engineers and the care, time, and attention our maintainers give these jets every day, inspecting, repairing, and launching them. Our maintainers continue to knock it out of the park and receive the highest inspection results when our last capstone took place. So where's my maintainers out there? A round of applause for them, too. I didn't hear them, though. Can I hear our maintainers? All right, our mission support group supported the reserve component period number 6 and deployed 131 airmen. How about a show of hands who deployed on that RSP for me? All right. With our expeditionary forces, we deployed 697 airmen to 6 combatant commanders, and that became the unit's largest deployment in our history. I can't say enough about our civil engineers, our contractors that are working nonstop, it seems, to transform the KC-135 base into a KC-46 base. We have an award-winning services flight, airmen working miracles in our vehicle maintenance, dedicated airmen in our small air terminal, and we appreciate the safety we receive from our security forces and firefighters who are second to none. In our medical group, where's our medical group? Let me hear from them. All right. Our medical group, they've supported a record amount of deployments as well as our airmen with immunizations, physicals, and exams. Our CERF-P is the #1 CBRNE response force in this country and continues to lead the way in training and capabilities, and was recognized nationally for the advanced life-saving certifications and the ability to teach these courses to other medical professionals. In General Rice, we are ready to man and support our own aeromedical evacuation squadron if one becomes available. Yeah. And to back it up, our recruiting team has been nationally recognized with the Patriot Award, continues to find us quality people that make outstanding airmen. Our operators skillfully fly these planes all over the world and have accumulated over 100,000 mishap-free flight hours in the KC-135 and support some of the most complex missions and never miss a CT. If you get a chance, asked the air crews to tell the story of Wooden 2-1. That's a call sign of a KC-135. And they saved an F-18 over the Pacific after it lost an engine and the crew had to toboggan down to 10,000 feet to refuel and reach a divert base. Or the story of Gold A2 that saved an F-22 over the Mediterranean after experiencing a fuel leak combined with an onboard computer malfunction that caused a severe imbalance. Once again, the crew tobogganed with the receiver in order to continue to refuel and reach the divert location. Are either of those crews here today? Show of hands, maybe? All right, right there's Glenn. All right, together with our active duty brothers and sisters who rejoined the wing in 2009, we've flown more combat hours per jet than any other A&G KC-135 unit over the past 9 years. And for the third year running, we've flown more sorties and more hours per KC-135 than any other Guard unit, Reserve unit, or active duty unit in the world. This is a true testament to our maintainers and the work of every airman here. Military service is the ultimate team sport, and no one does it better than Team Pease. With so many past and present members, please take some time to share some stories today. Take a walk around the corner. We have our heritage hallway set up in this building. Maybe you'll see some photos of yourself and your friends. And to all that are here today, to the 22 currently deployed, and to those that have served the 157th, I was going to say over the past 44 years, but you've gone past that. I'll throw in the past 60 years. Well done. Mission accomplished. While this is an end to an era, we'll soon turn the page to the next chapter. And it's a rich history. Once again, we'll make our mark, and we'll keep doing it the Pease way. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you, Colonel Pogorek. Colonel Pogorek had a lot of interesting facts. I have my own facts, if you guys, you don't have anywhere to be, do you? So I want to talk about 57-14-19. It's the oldest flying aircraft in the United States inventory, totaling 62 years of service. From 1958 to 1972, it was stationed at Fairchild Air Force Base with the 92nd Aerial Refueling Squadron, where its primary mission was nuclear deterrence. From 1972 to 1990, it moved over to K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base in Michigan. While at K.I. Sawyer, 1419 was vital to military efforts in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam era. It deployed to Thailand to participate in Operation Rolling Thunder with 195 other aircraft. This aircraft assisted in flying over 200,000 sorties and completing more than 800,000 aerial refuels. It also assisted in pumping 1.4 billion gallons of fuel to other coalition aircraft, which is enough to fill over 2,100 Olympic-sized swimming pools. In 1991, 57-14-19 underwent conversion from A model to R model at Boeing, then returned to Fairchild for 3 more years. Then from 1994 to 2008, it bounced around the Air Force inventory. It moved from Grand Forks to Kadena, then to McConnell, and then finally to Robbins. The aircraft was transferred from active duty in 2008 to the Guard at Forbes Field, Kansas. It flew with Kansas Forbes Field until 2017 and then was delivered to Pease. 1419 has served Pease for over 2 years now. It's flown 301 sorties spanning 1,416 flying hours and supported every contingency operation since its arrival. Today we say goodbye to an old friend, but we can rest assured knowing its story is far from over. Aircraft 1419 will continue to serve with the Arizona Air National Guard and will continue to do what it's always done, support the nation when called upon.
Lieutenant Colonel Jassoum and Chief Master Sergeant Bartlett, would you please come to the stage for a special presentation?
Colonel Pogorek and crew of PAC 157, on behalf of all current and former maintainers, we are honored to present you with the key to aircraft 57-14-19, the last KC-135 at Pease. Sir, your aircraft is fully mission capable. You know what I mean? I owe you two for this. That's good. Nice job. Chief, thanks so much.
At this time, the crew will now step to aircraft 1419. Yeah. Thank you. That is awesome. Good stuff. Yeah.
Brigadier General Farris would like to say a few words. Ma'am?
You can take one if you want. You're the general.
Wow, this is really something. Seeing John Lennon take that B4 bag, that's a classic. I don't know how old, that thing's definitely 60 years old. Anyhow, Senator Shaheen, Senator Hassan, thanks for coming. And to our civic leaders, we have Boeing reps, we have a little bit of everybody, and General Rice to make the trip up here. Not that you have anything else to do, sir, but I'm really glad you came to New Hampshire to share this with us. I guess my message is mostly, it is bittersweet. We're not only saying goodbye to a great friend, but that tanker out there, that's a living legend. That thing's I told Rob Burris, I showed him I was going to say, okay, she's not the prettiest bird, and Rob's like, I think she's pretty. I'm like, all right. Well, what I mean is, it's not in a movie like Top Gun and The Right Stuff. Even Captain Marvel was a fighter pilot. That really made me mad. I was like, come on, can we have a tanker pilot get any love today? But no. But when I thought about this bird, that bird, man, something special. I think of the tags and the GOs in the audience over here, and some colonels. And I think you all learned how to do stuff on that plane. Your first landing, fellas and women, your first landing, that poor plane put up with. You left a little rubber out on the runway, you probably jarred a few fillings loose, you might have knocked over your instructor pilot's coffee, made your navigator mad, but you know what? She forgave you. That bird forgave you, and you went up and did it again. And next thing you know, you were a seasoned aviator, and you were able to land in max crosswinds at the Azores with a whole crew load of people on board and very little fuel to divert, and you figured it out. It was your first time you ever commanded. You were in command of an airplane, and you took it in further and further until now we're in troops in contact. That bird knows where to go before we know where to go. We're there to be at cover over our troops in contact with our Army brethren. That plane knows where to go. I think of the boom operators. Those boom operators, literally teenagers back there, and they're back there and their voices kind of crackling, and you're like, I hope they know what they're doing back there. But within a year, I hear those boom operators have a calm, cool voice, and they're talking to that fighter pilot and brings them in the contact envelope, and brings them their gas over the middle of the ocean on a dark, stormy night, and that boom operator knows what he's doing. That's what that airplane's done for us. Now, navigators, I see a few of you out here. Navigators. Back in the day, we had navigators, GPS. I know I'm talking to people my age and a little bit my age. Okay. So we went, check this out, fellas, no GPS. Like, we were going across the ocean. The Pacific's a big place, right? And you had, what did you have, sir? You had the sextant, you had a pencil, you had a chart or two, and maybe a little whiz wheel calculator, and they figured out how to find Hawaii. Not Hawaii, they found Wake Island. That's what that plane did. And once again, I think that good old girl out there kind of knew where she was going. But I don't want to talk about anything else until I tell you what those maintainers did. Those maintainers, this thing's an antique, 1957. Think some of you might have antique cars. The pristine condition these airplanes were in, unbelievable. And they let us go fly them. I still am blown away by that. Whenever we would deploy, and all my ops guys know this, when you're overseas and there's a spattering of jets out there you get to go fly, and they assign you a mission. When you got a Pease tail, you're like, yes, because you knew that thing was the best. The pride these maintainers took in these airplanes, and I just saw Tuna here, retired a week ago, our oldest crew chief that worked on this tail. That's what those guys know. They owned her. They took care of her. And I am never going to forget all that you guys did and the dedication you had for it. The other thing, Pogo alluded to it, September 11th. Those maintainers, you think some of these guys, the first time they ever touched a jet with their screwdriver, and all of a sudden now, within hours, those airplanes are ready to get launched. We were over New York City in the United States capital of D.C. within hours. That's what our maintainers did with this old bird that taught them. And I'm not going to forget about all those poor airmen that we just took in the back. You guys went for some good rides with us. That's a lovely airplane to fly in, isn't it? I'm just, you know, you're in that little cargo thing. Do you sit up or down, and what do you do? And it's so loud, you can't hear anything. So your commander might be talking to you, giving you feedback. You're like, I have no idea what he's saying. I'm just going to nod and say, yes, sir, yes, sir. You don't know what's going on. And it was very warm, right? Yeah, it was like 185 degrees at your head and about 42 degrees by your feet. Beautiful airplane. But I'm telling you, it did wonders. The other thing I don't want to tell you is that airplane was so flexible, it became a medevac airplane, and no one ever thought we were made to be a medevac plane. No, we're a KC-135, but that plane out there, that good old bird, she knew how to, there was a demand in the mid-2000s with the Iraqi war going up higher, and we needed to get our wounded warriors back home as soon as we could. So they made that airplane a hospital in the back. Our flight nurses, our flight doctors, our medics were back there working feverishly to get our patients back home. America's best, they got them home, and that's what that airplane did. It brought cargo when we needed it. Hurricane Katrina, the first time a National Guard unit, we were down there delivering pallets of water, that bird was ready to go. She flew all over the world, delivering fuel and cargo to everybody. You know, every time we had a snowstorm here, fellas, men and women, she was out there cold with us. She sat there in that hot desert sun longer than we did, but she still delivered the mission. Old, dependable friend. Always there, always ready, always capable. And we are going to miss her. Godspeed, my friend. I'm going to miss that plane. You know, I get to walk around and meet new people every now and then in my new position, and I get to meet fighter pilots too. And fighter pilots always comment, especially as they get older, sir. I don't know what it is about them, but they realize, they always have a story about a tanker that saved their butt. And they really appreciate all this tanker did, and I mean everybody that touched it, support officers and boom operators and maintainers and pilots. But I decided to introduce our next, probably one of my favorite fighter pilots, the director of the Air National Guard, Lieutenant General Scott Rice. So thank you, sir, for being here, and come on up on the stage, sir.
Am I up? Test. Much better. Okay, let me put this back on now. It's a good thing I like you, Lori. It's a good thing. So, it's a great day for everyone. Senators, thank you for being here. Community leaders, representatives, our industry partners, our retirees, our families, our friends, and most importantly, those in uniform, you and your families that serve so honorably our nation. It's really pretty special how we all come together. And I'm truly honored to have my lovely wife, Nancy, come join me as we came up just for a few hours from Washington to be a part of something so historic. And I look at history. History really builds our heritage. And out of that heritage, we build culture. And out of culture, we build community. And for somebody like Nancy and I, our community that we live in, grow in, raise our children in and our grandchildren, and establish something good for the future is pretty special. So this history started many, many years ago. In fact, it started well before this 135 came to Pease. And if you look back in history and this small idea, the small colony, and the order that was signed back in 1636 that established the militia and the National Guard is where we plant our roots in history, and where our heritage comes from, and where we grew a culture that eventually became this thing called New Hampshire. And do you know, it was probably about, in the late 1600s, we had this event where we established a charter for New Hampshire. And we established a militia in the same light as part of the colony, the Massachusetts Bay Colony, that established a lineage for us to defend our communities against all sorts of adversity. And I think back on that if you can imagine, back in that time in 1637, when we asked all the communities around New England that were then part of the colony of Massachusetts to gather on that Salem Green in that spring of 1637, and I think Dave Michelatis was there. I think he was there in our boom that was up here. John Lennon, I think he was there showing you, hey, chop chop, you're going to have work to do here in a couple hundred years, so get after it. Because we look back in such great pride on our history and that heritage and that culture and what it built for us. And you just look at something simple like the fact that we established the Air National Guard at Grenier Field in Manchester. And in the 60s, we decided, late 60s, to move it down here to Pease. And then entering into all of those adventures that happened since then. One thing I'm curious about as a fighter pilot, I'm not always the sharpest tool in the shed, as Lori sometimes likes to point out. I thought sure the KC-135 was a lot bigger than that. I think you sent this whole crew into a shrinking machine so that they could go fly it. But it's pretty amazing the culture that has been created here. I was born and raised in New Hampshire. This is my home. This is where I come back to. This is where I look around and see my friends, my family, my relatives, and say, to all of you, thank you for being a part of this history, this heritage, this culture, this community. Because in your hands, literally and figuratively, you hold the most precious thing for Nancy and I. And that's our kids and our grandkids and their future. Thank you for adding one more most memorable page in our history and our heritage in the Air National Guard by driving, flying, fighting, and winning for the United States so that we can walk around as a strong community where nothing will faze us, nothing will stop us in the pursuit of liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words, General Rice, General Ferris. Thank you. Public Affairs, in coordination with the men and women of the base, have put together a final departure video.
There's been a lot of talk about the fancy KC-46 coming to town. Looks like it's finally going to happen. It's going to be out with the old and in with the new. I'm Master Sergeant John Lennon. And it's a sad transition for someone like me who's been a boom operator in the KC-135 for 36 years. The airplane was built just a couple of years before I was born. This particular jet happens to be the oldest aircraft in the United States Air Force inventory. Its tail number is 571419, and it was, that means it was built in 1957. My friends and I had a lot of good times on this trusty old Strato tanker. We've seen a lot, but don't just take my word for it. Let them all tell you about it. Some of these folks were built in the 50s also.
The KC-135, a tanker born in the 1950s that could keep pace with jet-propelled aircraft, arrived at Pease Air National Guard Base in 1975, replacing the unit's C-130s as the 157th became the Air National Guard's second unit to support the Strategic Air Command.
We got in the car and drove down to the other end of the base because the 509th was already here and already had KC-135s, and went into a hangar and climbed up in the cockpit and looked out around and said, what have we done? I had no idea what this mission was going to be like, what we were getting into.
Over the past 44 years, the airmen of the 157th have flown the KC-135 millions of miles, thousands of hours, serving all around the globe, from the Pacific Ocean to Europe, the Middle East, and here in the homeland.
Well, we've had a long legacy. 1975 is when they showed up here, and I call it generations of excellence that we built upon that over and over again to get us where we are today.
From the days of Strategic Air Command to today's Air Mobility Command, the 157th has proven itself to be the nation's premier team of total force airmen, preserving, protecting, and serving the United States at home and abroad.
We were the second unit in the Air National Guard to convert to the KC-135 mission, which would be part of the Strategic Air Command. At the time, the Strategic Air Command was so important to the United States, they did not have any reserve component factors in it. It was a total active duty mission.
It proved to be the perfect airplane for the National Guard. Very global in nature, gave the unit opportunities to participate all over the world, and the tanker mission is just incredible because it refuels just about every airplane in the inventory and increases the capacity of those airplanes by multipliers, sometimes of 2 and 3 times.
But I also really appreciate how it was built. I think it was a golden age of engineering at that time, and how smart those minds were to have the primary systems as well as the backup systems. I'm sure the planes are more capable now, but it's all computerized. And you can actually see the engineering and how it all falls into place in the 135s.
135 has been a good airplane for a long time. It's easy to maintain. There's not very many complicated systems, and I think for the people that have worked on it, knowing that it's an old airplane that's been around for a long time, take a lot of pride in it. It's like an old classic car.
Well, the KC-135 to the maintainers here at Pease is an icon to the unit, and to be able to put your hands on this airplane and be a part of its history is something that not many people can do.
The original A model wasn't without its challenges.
I was on the initial flight in September of 1975 in the KC-135A model. A terrible airplane.
And the A model was real small engines, way underpowered. We actually had a water tank in the keel beam bay that would hold 600 gallons of distilled water. And to augment the thrust on takeoff, you actually turned on a pump when they pushed the throttles up, and it would start injecting water into the combustion chamber of the engine to make the air denser to get a bit more thrust.
Noisy, just wasn't a very great airplane. But it was our airplane, and we were about to prove to the world that the 157th, under the leadership of One Each Jim Cudahy, was going to be a force to be reckoned with in the KC-135.
The foresight of Guard leaders, coupled with the spirited advocacy of New Hampshire's congressional delegation, led to the unit converting to the KC-135E model.
9 years after we got our A's, in 1984. I couldn't believe it. Great, great airplane. Better performance, better fuel economy, quieter, reverse thrust, better brakes. It was like, we just fixed everything that was wrong with the KC-135A model. And we were very happy with it.
The 157th Air Refueling Group developed a reputation for flying excellence. Among many awards the 157th has won are 2 Spats trophies as the Air National Guard's top flying unit. In June of 2000, competing against 20 active duty tanker teams, the 157th captured the General John C. Mayer Trophy as Air Mobility Command's best aerial refueling team. 1 year later, the 157th was named the top Air National Guard unit in the 21st Air Force, the 157th gaining command. The 157th won the same award again in 2002.
The biggest contribution the 135 is making is really to the insatiable demand for air refueling to the combatant commander. The aircraft is used to its maximum capability. If the commanders in the field could have more, they would take them, but we don't have that many. So it's a constant struggle of maintenance versus operational pace.
Everybody knows the acronym, nobody kicks ass without tanker gas. And if you don't, you should, because it is true. This country would have, its Air Force would be a shadow of what it is without the ability to project force through in-flight refueling.
When I first joined, I never thought about what I was doing and how it was actually affecting the mission, but one day I got to take an incentive flight here at Pease, and the day right before I fueled the same aircraft that we went up in the sky, and to me that really put it into perspective that the gas that I am putting onto the plane is going all over the world, refueling other airplanes, and enabling them to get to other places where they need to be.
As I think about it, how many phases have this plane gone through? How many modifications has it done? How many struts? How many booms have it changed? How many times have people gone into those fuel tanks and all those places just to get it right? We also look at what the air crew has been able to accomplish for this plane, the weapon system, the many hours logged through refuelings over the battlefield, over our own country under attack, the amount of cargo we moved back and forth, and of course the people to and from the battlefield.
It'll be a legacy to us, but the airframe's still going to be around we're going to see another generation of airmen that will fly and maintain this aircraft. And that is remarkable because we've already seen several generations that have transitioned through this weapon system, through this airframe. So we here at Pease are going to see it go away. But watching the news, you'll still see that KC-135 fighting the fight for many years to come.
Thank you, PA, for that production. If you're able, we will now transition the rest of the ceremony outside, where we will present a citation of accomplishment for the KC-135 at Pease, witness the last taxi and takeoff of our KC-135s. The takeoff is scheduled for 1:57, and the final flyover at 14:19. Earplugs are available on the way out of the hangar, and we'll see you guys there.
Present arms. Order arms. Be 62 years old, service contact crossing marching.
So growing up on the seacoast here in New Hampshire, obviously in Northampton, and watching the airplanes fly over all the time, and I thought it was amazing. I'd look up and be like, wow, that's really cool. I can remember back in school doing school projects on the aircraft and learning all about it. And someday I said, I want to be on that airplane. I want to get up there, I want to fly around and see what it's like. And to be a part of it finally is amazing. Growing up, obviously, as some people know, that learning to fly at Hampton Airfield and carrying on that passion for aviation here with the KC-135 has been amazing.
Yeah, so I actually grew up an Air Force brat. My dad was a fighter pilot, my grandfather was a bomber pilot, and my father originally from Rye. We moved to Northampton when I was a freshman in high school, and my mother's still a kindergarten teacher over there. And growing up underseeing the tankers, and my father told me about his experience from being a fighter pilot, and the best thing you could ever see in the horizon going across the ocean was that tanker turn in front of you, and you were getting home. So he told me about the coolest job an enlisted guy can have in the Air Force, and that's when I decided to go for it, and no regrets, absolutely.
So the KC-135, being a part of that community, starting off my career, is something that's pretty important, pretty amazing to be a part of, and really an honor to step foot in such a legacy aircraft that's had so much history, traveled all over the world. So many men and women have flown on the aircraft, and it's amazing to be a part of that. And really, I only had a little over a year in the aircraft, but it was enough time to get a good feeling for the aircraft and the amazing aircraft that it is.
Yeah, so it's a bittersweet kind of day out here. I've been with the unit for 10 years, and been a lot of different places, a lot of cool places, a lot of not so cool places in this aircraft, and it's definitely a legacy aircraft, and definitely happy to have the honor to be on it for 10 years, everywhere from Iraq, Afghanistan to Kyrgyzstan to nicer places like Hawaii. So it's definitely been an honor to fly in the aircraft, and very excited for the future. Staying with tankers and continuing to do the mission of air refueling.